when you don't obey America, they want to ensure that you fail. And they do that quite well. As in Colombia, and of course the Portuguese then found their way in what is today Brazil. The British somehow found their way in modern-day Belize, and the French also found themselves in areas such as Suriname, and even the Dutch found themselves in what is called the Dutch Antilles. So these new lands became the subject of slavery initially because the local peoples were decimated deliberately by military action and also by disease, because these individuals came with certain diseases which were unknown in that part of the world, particularly the Spaniards and the British, as I've already said, and the net effect is that whole populations were dominated and completely eliminated in certain cases, so that if you go into the Arawakans now, the people who are called the Arawakans, who then moved into the island that is called St. Vincent and Grenadines, their language was wiped away, but is now being revived. If you hear of a language called the Garifuna, that is the language which is spoken by the Arawakans. But most of the slaves that then found themselves in that part of the world were slaves that were taken to that part of the world. When they had decimated the local population, that is why the Portuguese now started taking people to Brazil. And Brazilians, if you go to Brazil, there is a very large population of Yorubas. There is also a very large population of Ovambo and of Imbundu from what is today Angola and also Mozambique. So once again, you can see it is the colonizers who are coming from their colonies or the areas that they had conquered in the African continent and taking them to Latin America. The Spaniards also took people from their colonies in different, and some of them were not even their colonies, but they took them from Africa in the area that is now called Equatorial Guinea. A lot of Equatorial Guineans were taken out of there, and Sao Tome and Principe, and we find them in the Spanish colony. The British, of course, as we know, took their people from their slaves from Ghana, from Nigeria, from the Gambia, and from Liberia, and from Sierra Leone, and they found themselves in Trinidad and Tobago. In Trinidad and Tobago, you find a large population of people who are of Igbo origin and Yoruba origin. And in Jamaica, you also find those. In fact, there is a place in Jamaica in the mountains where you have the commandos. These were slaves who ran away and went to the mountain, and they became free, even in that environment. So you find those in the Caribbean. So you find populations in Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and of course Suriname and Dutch Antilles, all the European powers, because at that time sugarcane was huge. And those islands were very good for the growing of sugar. They also became very good for the growing of bananas. You had the term banana republic. There was a time when countries such as Honduras, Colombia were big for bananas. Even as we speak today, some of the bananas that you find are either from Honduras, Chiquita, you find them from Costa